let's talk about the method. That was sort of a very brief picture of truth, the wisdom, the method now.
刚刚讲的是一个简单的有关真相、智慧的这方面。现在我们来谈一下方便，或者说方法。
Method is sort of a device. It is a gimmick, actually.
那这个方便或方法，事实上是一种工具，或者是一种游戏，可以这样讲。
It is supposedly to make you not forget that truth. That's why it's called method.
它的设计就是要让你不要忘记那个真相，所以才叫做方法。
Now the method is a little tricky.
可是方法是很麻烦、很有诡计的。
Wisdom is, quite clear. Either you get it right or wrong. There's not so much in between.
因为智慧呢是蛮准确的，它是不会有说好像又是又不是。没有什么中间的灰色地带。
Method is tricky.
这个方法比较麻烦。
It's because this is also another reason why the wisdom should always accompany method should always accompany wisdom, because that sort of self-deceiving aspect of the method always gets taken care of by the wisdom.
这也是为什么我们一直强调智慧，方便跟智慧一定要结合在一起，否则这个不然就是这个方便的这个自我欺骗的这个面向呢，智慧可以把它照顾住。
So the Buddhist path is kind of strange, It's like they give you two things. They give you two devices, so to speak, and they are designed to cancel each other.
佛教的设计很有意思，好像是给你两个工具，可是他们的设计是让这两个可以互相抵消。
They are designed to erode
设计
each
来
other.
互相消融、消减。
Again, this has something to do with the wisdom. Let's go back to wisdom just for a moment. This has got something to do with the
这
wisdom.
跟智慧有关系，我们再回到智慧一下。
Because according to the Buddha, fundamentally the wisdom is that you have to go beyond being Buddhist.
因为基本上根据佛陀的说法，基本上以智慧的观点来讲，你必须要超越作为一个佛教徒。
Being a Buddhist is never the agenda. That's not your top priority, actually.
因为我们作为佛教徒，事实上不是我们主要的目的。
Being the Buddha, Buddha means in Latin, awakened one. Awakened to the truth. That's the agenda. That's the aim.
我们的目标不是要做个佛教徒，我们的目标是要成佛。佛就是这个证悟的人，觉醒的人。
Being Buddhist is, there's all kinds of Buddhists.
做佛教徒没什么，因为有各种各样的佛教徒。
There are Buddhists who don't brush their teeth.
也有一些不刷牙的佛教徒。
There are Buddhists who, I don't know, they're strange Buddhists. There are a lot of strange Buddhists.
有很多奇怪的佛教徒。
But you have to know, in the Buddhist rituals, like prayers, there's never one shloka, probably new ones, I don't know, but never till now a shloka or a stanza that has like, may all become Buddhist. None.
可是诸位要晓得，在佛教的所有的祈请文、祈祷文的各种寄诵里面，完全没有一句说愿所有的人都变成佛教徒，绝对没有。
But there is, yes, may all sentient beings become Buddha, yes. Even Donald Rumsfeld.
Even what?
Donald Rumsfeld. Donald Rumsfeld. You know what is it? Who is it? Donald Rumsfeld. Yeah. 可
是佛教的这个寄诵里面一直有这个愿 一切众生都成佛，包括这个 Donald Rumsfeld。
And by the way, that's an important point I'm making about Donald Rumsfeld.
可是有关于这位国防部长的是很重要的一句话，仁波切在说。
Because you know, we are supposed to have compassion.
因为我们应该有慈悲心。
And usually our compassion is always limited to these stray dogs running up and down in Indian street.
可是我们通常的慈悲心都是在看着那些流浪狗在我们门口跑来跑去的流浪狗。
But I'm telling you, stray dogs in Indian streets, they're probably more closer to the truth.
可是仁波切要告诉大家，在印度街上跑来跑去那些流浪狗，说不定还比较接近真相。
Not, you know, so actually our compassion should really include equally members of the White House, the president of the National Rifle Association, all of them must be included. That's hard, and this is again your method without the wisdom. That's what happens. You know, like very lopsided method, lopsided compassion, idiot compassion.
所以我们的这个慈悲心应该包含很多种人。刚刚提到这个慈悲心没有智慧的话，就是像我们平常的样子，我们是一种不平衡的这个慈悲心，一种笨蛋的慈悲心。
I got distracted now.
然后现在说他想到不晓得哪里去了。
I lost my thread. What was? Okay, method. I was talking about method. Right. Method is tricky. That's what I was saying.
方法是很麻烦的。
Because the method has to speak your language. That's the problem.
因为方法必须用你的语言来讲，这个是麻烦的开始。
It has to sort of be within your reach.
它必须在你可以掌握到的范围里面，才叫做方法。
So, what does that mean? That means that it's not the truth, but it's designed for the truth. You understand? It's not the truth, but it's designed for the truth. So there's this contradiction. There's a little bit of this paradox. That always makes things hard.
他的意思是说，它本身不是真相，可是它是设计用来趋近那个真相用，所以它这个本身不是跟要趋近，所以常常这个之中的间隙就会产生一些问题。
For instance, like the method of monks and nuns shaving their hair.
比如说像这个比丘、比丘尼剃度的这种方法方便。
It is a method.
它是一个方法。
It is a method to understand the truth that the body that we are so attached to, and that attachment is a deception. That's what is supposed. That's to remind that.
所以这个剃头、剃度这个事情，这个方法是要提醒我们所这么真爱的这个身体，事实上是一个欺骗我们的东西。所以这个方法是来提醒我们那个真相。
It's got nothing to do with like Buddha had an allergy with hair or something.
它并不是佛陀对于头发过敏，才叫大家剃头。
It's a design. It is a gimmick.
它是一个设计，是一个游戏。
And I guess in some parts of the world, like in India, shaved head, begging bowl, bare feet, all this reflects serenity,
或者是在印度世界上某些地方，像印度，如果你这个剃头，然后拿着托钵，然后光脚这样行走，代表一种清净、一种纯净的状态。
So people also respect that kind of, look.
那里的人喜欢而且尊重那种样子，
So this is where the trickery thing happens.
所以这个麻烦就在这里发生了。
Just as after you shave, you do the after shave like this, the monks also go like.
就是诸位刮胡子以后涂那个刮胡水，那现在这个出家人比丘的剃头以后头上也这样弄。
So the begging about how empty is empty, like. Sort of, and then the gentle walk, all this becomes a style, fashion, a trend.
那像托钵，这个钵是空的，这个可是这个钵本身就会开始变成一种流行，一种时尚。
So this is the trickery bit, the tricky part of like method forgetting the wisdom, method becoming. Remember I said the method has that, it's designed for the truth, but it is not the truth. And many times the not the truth aspect of the method ends up outshining the purpose of the method. This happens a lot.
记得刚刚仁波切说，这个方法是设计用来接近真理的，可是常常最后这个接近真理的这一部分被忘掉了。 反而是那个非真理的那一部分，比这个真理那一部分还要重要。
For instance, sitting straight is a method.
比如说坐直，打坐是一种方法。
And it's a really good method. You should. I'm not discouraging anyone.
这是一个非常好的方法，而且不是在教大家冷水。
It's a really good. It's a good posture. It is a really good, many good side effects.
它是很好，它这个坐姿很好，有很多好的这种效果。
But it is designed to align your thoughts, your mind, to dwell on the truth. That's what's the purpose.
可是它设计是为了要让你的念头，让你的心可以 安住在这个真相上面，这是目的。
What we should not forget is that you could be, having a rave party, dancing heads off, and having a complete awareness, and all. There is no reason why you should not categorize that as a perfect meditation or a mindfulness.
所以我们不应该忘记，如果你现在是在一个疯狂的这个派对里面，各种各样的这个事情在发生，可是你可以保持完全清明的觉知，知道一切的事情，你不能说没有什么原因不能说这是你在做一个完美的禅定。
But didn't I say that? The method is very tricky. It's really tricky in a really big time. For instance, if I suggest a method of let's have a rave party and let's consider this as a meditation, I'll be kicked out from the Buddhist circle. I will become jobless.
可是仁波切说这个方法是真的是很大的一个麻烦，因为如果现在仁波切教大家说，建议大家说我们都来参加这种疯狂派对，然后我们这个叫做禅定的话，那他会被这个佛教圈子踢出去，他就会失业了。
And I have to be careful, not just because of the job.
仁波切要小心，不只是为了这个工作的关系。
Similar to the posture, mantra. What else? Prayers, or rituals such as flower offerings, incense, all these are methods.
那跟这个打坐一样。 类似的这个念咒啊、祈请文啊，或者是像供香啊、 供花这种仪式，都是方法。
And again, flowers, incense, all of this is the method side, sort of the worldly side of that method has outshined the wisdom side of the method a lot.
那一样的，在像供花、供香这种世俗面向的这个仪式性呢，常常都取代了，或者比这个智慧面向的还来得被重视。
In places like in a very, the Buddhist traditional Buddhist societies like Japan, like India, Tibet, Bhutan, China, like going to a temple, going to burning an incense, offering of lamps, it has become a ritual, it has become a custom.
比如说像在佛教国家，日本啊、印度啊、西藏啊、中国啊等等，去庙里烧香，已经变成一种习惯。
And while it's, you cannot really reject them,
也不能真正的拒绝他们。
To keep, being mindful in how much of this custom is accompanied with the wisdom is important.
那这些习惯，这个风俗习惯，有多少跟这个正念有关系，跟智慧有关系，是重要的。
Okay, that's one set of wisdom and method. More, I think, should be sort of understandable. What I just sort of put together.
那所以刚刚讲的是一套这个智慧跟方便之间的关系，应该大家比较容易懂。
Now, a method and the wisdom and method that is slightly more profound and deeper.
现在再谈一个另外一套智慧跟慈悲，可能比较深奥、比较深的一个方法。
More profound and deeper. And the deeper because our habitual mind cannot accept it. Even more difficult to accept than life is impermanent.
那比较深奥，是因为我们的习气呢不能接受，不太能接受。比较深奥的是比这个生命是无常的，像这样子的更深奥。
Life is impermanent, to the certain extent. Your grandfather died, your great-grandfather died, your mother is dying. Everybody is dying. So, at the end, you will have to bow down to that truth anyway.
那说生命是无常的，这个大家比较能接受，因为你的曾祖父死了，祖父也死了，妈妈也快死了，那每个人都要死，所以这个大家最后都会屈服于这样的真理，这是没问题的。
The higher truth that I wanted to just briefly share with you.
那更高的这个真相呢，我而且短暂的、简短的跟大家说一下。
Very difficult to accept this one.
非常难接受的这个。
Even after being more than half a century Buddhist myself, still difficult to accept.
即使像那些做了50多年的半个世纪的佛教徒呢，他还是不太容易接受。
Logically, it makes sense to me. It's just my emotion not accepting.
逻辑上是通的，只是情感上不容易接受。
And that is our most beloved, cherished, valued, venerated so-called self. I, me, is totally baseless. That is what Buddha taught. And if you analyze, if you do have time to analyze, you will see this is the truth.
那就是呢， 我们所最珍爱、最珍惜、最尊重、最爱惜的这个自我，或者说我，事实上是完全毫无基础的。这是佛陀所教的。如果你有时间去分析的话，你会发现这果然也是一个真相。
It's difficult because you will keep on saying, "What do you mean by I do not exist? Here, I am here. Here's my head, and like the emotional, so habitual mind will not hear it."
可是我们会说，这你什么意思？我不是存在吗？我有头，有头发，有手，在我们的这种情感的这种心呢，没办法接受这一点。
But give yourself some time, contemplate, think inward. Who is this?
可是，如果你可以给自己一点时间，做点思维，去思考，这个我所谓的我到底是谁？
Who is doing the thinking?
谁在想？
Who is it that is getting sad or excited or depressed?
谁是谁在那里经验悲伤、沮丧等等？
What is it that we are so attached to? What is it that we are cherishing?
我们在珍惜的是什么？
Who is this self that does not seem to acknowledge that others also have notion of self?
这个我们所说的自我到底是谁？这个自我完全不容易体认，别人也有一个自我。那这样子的自我是谁？
Now, this one requires a bit of a contemplation.
这个真相需要一点思维的动作。
As I keep on repeating, a little bit difficult.
这个仁波切一直说这个比较难。
Not difficult logically. If you
Logic-
have time, that can be established, but emotionally difficult to accept.
逻辑上，如果你有时间，是不难去建立这样子的一个看法。可是情感上很难。
It does sound like we are so attached to a label that is labeled as totally baseless, transitory collections. That's what it is.
这听起来像是说，我们事实上是非常珍惜、珍爱一个标签，一个完全没有基础的标签。这个标签呢，是这个标签的东西呢，是一个暂时存在的一种现象。
Like the notion of forest. There's no such thing as forest independent from trees.
比如说，像我们讲森林，事实上并没有一个森林独立存在的森林，跟树没有关系的森林。
You can save tree actually, but we think we should save forest.
你可以保存一个树，可是我们认为我们在保存一个森林。
Okay, anyway, this is one of the higher and more profound and more truth. And this knowing this truth is one very important wisdom, so important.
那所以这个是一个比较高层次的一种真相。那了解这个真相是非常非常重要的。
Because if you have that wisdom, then you will know what is meant by not selfish. Until then, this, he's not selfish at all. Many of this kind of not selfish at all, they are selfish, not selfish at all, out of selfish.
知道你有这样了解这样的真相或真谛，才有所谓的无私这件事情。因为一般我们都在讲说，哦，这个人非常无私， 常常这种一般的无私，都是因为自私的关系所表现出来的无私。
You know, it's good to feel not selfish.
感觉无私是一种，自我感觉良好的一种感觉。
That's very shaky ground already.
所以站在一个已经非常不稳定的这个地上了。
This kind of spiritualist who feels good for not being selfish, very, very easy to corrupt.
因为这种所谓的好像精神性的这个无私的，事实上很容易被污染。
Easy to bribe, manipulate. I can teach you how to do it.
很容易被贿赂，很容易被污染，而且还可以教大家怎么做。
But anyway, when you know that the self, actually, an idea of self really does not exist, more than how we look at a rainbow, beautiful, intact, colorful, but nothing exists, but that does not mean that it's not there, it's still there, but it's also not there. Then what it does is you don't necessarily go with a chainsaw to cut that rainbow to put it in your bag. You just enjoy. And when it disappears, well, rainbow disappeared, something that does not really exist once again did not exist, sort of, that kind of. When you gain that kind of confidence, then I think you begin to have true altruism and true compassion. Sorry.
所以这个自我不存在的这个概念，可以这样来理解，就好像我们看到一个漂亮美丽的彩虹，这个彩虹我们看到它在那里，可是我们也知道它其实不在那里。所以既然这样子的话，你不会拿一个电锯去要把那个彩虹锯子放口袋回家，只是在那里欣赏那个彩虹。而且当彩虹消失了以后，你也不会觉得特别怎么样，因为它本来就是不是一个存在的东西。所以如果你真正能够有这样子的信念跟信心对于自我的话，你这个真正的这个利他主义跟悲心才会出现。
This last bit that I was talking to you, selflessness aspect of the truth in Buddhism, this aspect of Buddhism have basically ruined the empire of Buddhists.
最后仁波切刚刚在讲这个所谓的无我这方面的这个佛教的这个真相呢，基本上毁灭了佛教王国。
And those who are really true follower of the Buddha, they are so happy that it was ruined.
而且那些真正佛陀的真正的追随者，会非常高兴这个佛教王国被毁灭了。
But as I keep on repeating, the selflessness part is difficult.
可是仁波切一直重复，这个无私是不容易的。
Not so used to this
无我，不容易习惯这样子的真相。
Because everything is about self-improvement nowadays.
因为这年头一切都是自我改善的东西，所以
everything is about confidence, building confidence.
一切都是要建立自信。
And also, emotionally, just not. It's so difficult to accept emotionally.
就是在情感上是非常难接受这件事情。
But should you really give in to emotion?
可是我们真正应该降服于情感吗？
Should you really surrender to emotions that is so fickle and changing all the time?
我们真的应该降服于这个随时在改变的情绪吗？
Maybe it is high time to sort of not give in to emotion too much, at least towards the beginning, and then slowly not learn not to give in to emotion at all.
所以也许差不多是时候了，我们可以来，不要完全降服于我们的情绪，然后慢慢的，到最后完全不让情绪控制你。
You might like to know what's the benefit.
你可能会知道说，那这有什么好处呢？
As in the shopping, remember the impermanence in the shopping business?
就好像刚刚讲无常跟这个购物之间有现实的好处一样。
What's the benefit of knowing the selflessness?
知道无我有什么好处？
Fundamental cause of the suffering is obsession.
意思吗？
Obsession.
基本的这个痛苦呢，是一种执着。
Denting, poking a hole in this systematic system of clinging to the self, cherishing the self, even just denting it will reduce the obsession.
所以，如果我们把这个很坚固的这个系统，就是一种自我执着、自我珍惜的这种系统，让它破个洞，或者是让它把它打扁一点的话，那就会降低很多我们的一些对事情的执着。
And what's wrong with the obsession?
那执着或者是坚持一些这种是有什么坏处呢？
Because it conceals the truth.
因为它蒙蔽了真相。
And what's wrong with not seeing the truth? Back to, because you don't want to suffer, remember?
那不知道真相有什么坏处呢？又回到我们一开始，因为我们不想受苦。
And here, I will conclude by quoting Shantideva. I will let you ask some questions, if maybe.
等一下，诸位可以问一些问题，如果要的话。那仁波切说，在这里他以吉天菩萨的话来做一个结尾。
Dunghal nyavar shidendu drebi mongba domija. You want to be free from suffering. You don't want to suffer. You don't want to, go through pain. Therefore, you should follow the path.
你不希望痛苦，你希望从苦之中解脱出来，因此你应该跟随一条道路。
And as the dweller on the path, you are allowed to have one ignorance, one obsession.
那在你在道上修持的时候，你准许有一个无明，就是有一种执着。
And that obsession is thinking that there is an enlightenment.
那这个执着或者这个无明呢，就是认为有一个东西叫做证悟。
So to think that there is an enlightenment is also an obsession. It is also ignorance. But you should have that for the time being.
所以去认为说有一个证悟这个东西在那里，基本上也是一种执着，一种无明。可是目前你是允许可以有这个无明。
Because otherwise you will continuously entangle yourself with making more cause and condition for the suffering and suffer and create, and that's how you create what the Buddhists call cyclic existence, going round and round. Going round and round, cyclic existence.
因为否则如果没有这样子的话，你会一直让自己纠缠在这个不断制造苦的因的一个轮回，就是佛教讲的轮回这里面，因为会不断的这样轮转。
Okay. I'm running out of things to say now.
摩切说他没有更多的东西要说了。
So I'm happy to ask few questions.
可以回答几个问题，如果诸位有的话。
That's important because I'd like to also know, what is that? Yeah. Did you want to know?
摩切也想知道大家在想什么。
Hi. I have a question here. If I am doing a business, how should I deal between selfless and selfish? Thank you.
如果我在做生意的话，我怎么去处理这个自私跟无我的事情？是不是？
I'm assuming that you want to be a good business.
摩切说他大概认为你想要生意做得好吧？
And good means a lot of things.
那好有很多意思。
Good now, good later, good for a lot of others.
现在好，未来好，或是让别人好。
I think you should be ruthless.
那么接着说你应该不择手段。
And you should be really, what do you call it? Efficient.
应该非常有效率。
And you should really aim high.
应该目标放得很高。
You should aim to be really the sort of the biggest businesswoman in the world.
你应该立下目标，要做世界上最好、最强的女强人，在商业上。
But the reluctance to become that should always be there.
可是同时呢，你又要有一种勉为其难的这样去做的一种心情呢，要一直在。
This will help you actually.
这样子会帮助你。
Because if you fail, which you will time to time,
如果你失败的话，那有时候你会失败的。
you will think it's okay, I sort of, you are prepared.
你会无所谓，因为你会心里有准备。
Actually, what I just told you is really, quite okay sort of method of wisdom and method balanced, really.
事实上，刚刚仁波切给你的建议，就是一个还蛮好的一种智慧跟慈悲的平衡。
Because I could easily say, oh, give up your business, don't do business.
仁波切他也可以说，哦，你不要做生意了，放弃吧。
To be a Buddhist, you don't do business.
做一个佛教徒，你不要做生意。
That will be no balance with wisdom and method.
那这就不是一个智慧跟慈悲的平衡。
You might end up suffering.
你可能会痛苦，
You might end up, getting stressed
你可能会变得这个压力很大。
when the bills arrive.
当你的账单来的时候，你可能压力很大。
And then you may even forget Buddha Dharma.
也许你就因此而忘记了佛法了。
Okay?
Thank you, Rinpoche. I have two questions. One is in terms of my reaction to suffering, anxiety, pain, etc. I feel acutely and more or less constantly aware of my ideas of how many other people are suffering. I'm concerned about the planet, as I know many people are. And I know a lot of people who are in pain and communities who are. And I do think about future generations, and those disturb me on a very personal level. And that is my motivation now for continuing forward. And I don't understand that as being separate from my own salvation in a Hinayana sense. So I'm wondering about, and this is a term that we haven't had in this talk, but I'm wondering about mandala principle and working with wisdom and method or compassion, both in one's personal practice, my own personal practice, but it being motivated by my sense of relationship with the world. That's one question. And then the other is, I'm trying again to read Jewel Ornament of Liberation, and this time, so Gyampopa describes the causal characteristic of samsara as being bewilderment, and the primary characteristic as being misery, and the causal characteristic of nirvana as being the end and dispersion of bewilderment, and the primary characteristic of it being the transcendence of misery, but their real nature as being shunyata both. When I read that this last time, I felt, does that mean that samsara is a necessary precondition for nirvana? Is that why they are inextricable?
I've already forgotten the first question.
Okay. So we don't get to see you very often, so maybe I'm being very selfish in asking both
Okay,
of them.
I will answer the second one. Is that okay?
Yes.
That's a very classic sort of the Buddhist, especially Madhyamika school approach, is that the Buddhists don't believe that you need to abandon. I mean, okay, I just quote Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna said, that Buddha never taught that there is a nirvana that requires abandoning the samsara. Buddha said, non-existence of the samsara is the nirvana. So if you can understand that, then this fits. So it's not like you need a samsara. You understand?
我们现在说回答这个第二个问题，他说这个是一个非常中观的派的观念，那么现在就引用龙树菩萨所说的，他说佛从来没有教导过说你必须放弃轮回才能够到达涅槃，你只要了解并没有轮回就可以到达涅槃，所以并不是说轮回一定是一个需要你要先经过的东西。
Okay.
That doesn't seem like a removal from shunyata, saying that samsara is the non-existence of samsara anyways. It's non-existent. So to perceive
it is very much the
nirvana.
shunyata, because the non-existence of the samsara is nirvana, right?
After samsara. So it is a precondition, or
No, because if the samsara does not exist, then that is nirvana, but for the sake of communication, this is what we say. But then we know that they can't have a nirvana too.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, 1, 2, maybe 3 questions, and then I think our bladder is full, so we will.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for the teaching. I have a question. So I have a question about being passionate about others. So I understand that other people are just like me that don't like pains or sufferings. That's why I understand that I should understand other people and stuff like that. But if selfness does not exist, why should we consider the selfness of others?
Very good.
他说这个我应该知道我应该想别人跟我一样的痛苦，所以这样子是对的态度。可是既然如果是无我的话，为什么我们也要去管别人的无我呢？
The simple answer is, if you are suffering, then that means that you still haven't really understood the selflessness of self.
那么就说，简单的回答是说，如果你在受苦，那就表示你还没有了解到人无我这件事情。
So, therefore, you are not realized yet. So therefore, compassion to others' suffering is necessary.
因此，你就还没有证得。那既然你还没有证得，对于他人发起悲心，就必须是必要的。
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you. In your estimation, how many human beings alive today are enlightened on the globe?
人们请你估计一下，现在活着的人类有多少位是证悟的？
It's a very important question.
这是一个很重要的问题。
As a practitioner, I'm a struggling practitioner. My job is to actually think, even now, that all these are enlightened except me.
那么就说
That I'm being a total, what do you call it, jerk? Talking about enlightenment to enlightened beings. And here I am, I'm not. That's my job.
人们就说，作为一个挣扎的修行者，他的这个任务是要坐在这里跟大家谈证悟，可是同时他也必须要了解说他在跟所有这些都证悟的人在谈，在场只有他一个人没有证悟，所以他实在是一个真正的所谓的 jerk 很难翻的，是笨蛋好，对。
But more practically, I think, there must be so many enlightened beings.
可是从比较实际的讲法来，大概有很多证悟的人。
Not necessarily as a, priest or a yogi or a monk or a nun.
并不一定会身为教士啊，或者是瑜伽士啊，这个出家人啊。
Most likely as a cashier in the 7-Eleven.
比较可能的是在 7-Eleven 的这个付账的那个人，收钱的那个。
Gas station attendant.
或者加油站帮你加油的人。
Or a, prostitute.
或者妓女。
The last note that you left us with was that on the dweller of the path, the last obsession we could have was thinking there's enlightenment. So would you say that that's a method? And how would that be if there's wisdom with that method? What would that look like, and not wisdom with that method?
How would that look like?
Well, the first question is that a method, thinking there is
Yes,
enlightenment,
it
the
is.
last obsession?
It
And so
is.
because your talk today was about wisdom and method together, can you comment on that last part? If we're walking this path thinking there's enlightenment, how do we do that with wisdom?
Okay, very
所
good.
以问题是说，这个仁波切最后讲的是说，作为一个修持者，你可以有一个无明，就是认为有一个证悟可以达成，那这是不是一个方法？仁波切说是。那第二个，他的问题是说，那这件事情上怎么结合智慧跟方便？
First, I will just give you a, what do you call it, bibliography. If you want to read, one of the chapter of the Madhyamika Mulakarika by Nagarjuna, there's one chapter called Analyzing the Buddha, which is important.
第一个先给你一个读书的功课，就是龙树菩萨的中论里面有一章是分析佛的。
Okay. Secondly, it's like this. Like if you have a bad dream and you really suffer in that nightmare situation.
那这个另外一个是这样子，如果你有做了一个噩梦，然后你很痛苦。
In the dream time for years.
你梦了好几年。
All sorts of pain. Okay.
各种各样的痛苦。
But when you wake up,
可当你醒来的时候
whatever you are dreaming, such as spiders biting you, whatever, it's gone.
这不管你什么样的痛苦，像蜘蛛在咬你啊，什么都不再有了。
Then you have a relief.
那你就解脱了。
But this relief is based on false, because there was never a spider.
可是这个解脱是根据一个错误的东西，因为从来没有一个蜘蛛咬过你。
You have been sleeping all along very peacefully.
你都一直很安详的在睡觉。
Using this kind of analysis,
用这样子的类似这样子的分析
we try to understand even the enlightenment is just a projection.
这样去了解说，即使是证悟，也是我们的一种投射而已。
But don't forget, right now you are suffering because you are dreaming.
可是不要忘记，你现在是在痛苦之中，因为你在梦中。
The all problem started because you slept.
所有的问题都是你睡着了。
Okay.
Thank you. 感恩仁波切的开示，顶礼仁波切，谢谢。我想问的一个问题就是，您曾经开示说，想体悟空性并不是一件非常容易的事情，但是我们可以通过修慈悲观，它可以自动引领我们进入空性。那我再次想请仁波切开示一下，具体来说修慈悲观会有哪些比较好的，而且是比较便捷的方法？好，我请姚仁喜先生帮我翻译一下，谢谢。
修慈悲观，
就是慈悲观，空性如果直接了悟空性是一个比较难的事情，但是可以通过修慈悲观，可以自动引领我们进入空性。
Okay.
那我想请仁波切开示一下，
Okay.
怎样去修慈悲观？谢谢。
Her question is: once you have taught that it's very hard to directly understand emptiness. Therefore, you have to practice. One has to practice compassion to approach emptiness. Can you suggest some good and quick way to practice compassion in order for us to get to emptiness?
Very, very valuable question.
很好的问题。
Compassion is what they call the wealth of the noble being. So it's quite difficult.
悲心呢，这个传统上叫做这个高贵人的财富，所以是一个非常难的事情。
There's one good news.
有一个好消息就是，
You actually do have compassion.
因为你事实上有悲心，
It's there.
已经具足了。
It need to be manifested. It need to come out.
它需要被显现出来。
This is what Maitreya said. Actually, Lord Maitreya.
这是弥勒菩萨说的。
Dugla Chor Mijirsi, you know, he said, you get sad sometimes.
因为弥勒菩萨说，你有时候会感到悲伤。
You know, sadness.
你说
That's like a sort of very distant maybe, but it's a kicking of compassion.
这个也许很遥远，不过是悲心在踢你，在触动了那个悲心。
Things like, you know, willow trees, I don't know, sunset makes you feel strange.
比如说，有时候你会看到一些垂柳啊、夕阳啊，你会感到有一种不一样的感觉。
Things like, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner, again breakfast, lunch, dinner, again breakfast. You know, all these kind of things, you know, what is this?
或者是
These are
说，
important.
或者是说像早餐、中餐、晚餐，又早餐、中餐、晚餐，又早餐、中餐，所以这样子的这个，让你觉得有一种特别的感觉，这个都很重要。
So instead of actually, you know, what we usually do is we try to divert our attention from the sadness, because the sadness, who wants to be sad?
通常我们都把这种东西就想办法把它弄掉，因为谁想要悲伤？
Try to sort of capitalize that a little bit.
试图从这里面得到一些好处。
This is one of the really most practical way.
这是一个最实际的办法。
And then the quickest way, as you demanded.
如果你要的，佛教的方法是你自己要求的。
And now I'm going to talk to you as a totally follower of the Buddha.
仁波切现在要以真正的这个佛陀追随者的姿态跟你讲，
Pray to the Buddha.
就向佛陀祈请。
Prayer is so important.
祈请是非常重要的，
Because when you pray for the compassion, then immediately, automatically, you are admitting you don't have compassion. That is humility. That's good.
因为一旦你开始祈请说，我希望我有悲心，表示你觉得你没有悲心，这是一种谦卑，是非常好的。
And you are also the sense of valuing the compassion will grow.
而且你对于这个悲心的珍惜的这种感觉也会增长。
Okay. So on this, yeah, you are finished?
你结束了吗？
Yeah. Okay.
好，谢谢。
So this is a good note to conclude our very sort of brief and I don't know, chaotic discussions on very profound and deep and infinite subject of wisdom and method, or wisdom and compassion. I think the day is still young. Please have a lot of fun.
我觉得说这个是对于这个非常深奥的智慧跟慈悲的这个题目一场简短而混乱的讨论。那刚刚这位女士的答案正好做一个很好的结束。这个天色还早，希望大家出去好好玩一玩。